Before we talk about the possibility of a landslide for JD Vance against Kamala Harris in the 2028 election, go in the description down below and vote Republican in this online government simulation today. There is an election going on and we need as much turnout as humanly possible. Vote Republican at the top of the ticket for president and down ballot as well. The link in the description will be there. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. Today we are updating the map with JD Vance versus Kamala Harris with polling from some of the most accurate pollsters in the country. If we look, Atlas Intel released their US poll, and if you look at the popularity rating of certain figures, you will now see that Barack Obama is no longer in the positive favorable rating in Atlas for the first time in many years. Michelle Obama is -5 points, just a little bit higher than Kamala Harris. But if you look at the very top, JD Vance is the most popular politician that Atlas has actually polled thus far, making a landslide possibility for JD against Kamala Harris very possible. The popular vote is very indicative based on favorability ratings of candidates. Favorable ratings tend to be fairly accurate when it comes to predicting popular vote shares. And when we look at the election, we would see a landslide scenario for JD Vance versus Kamala Harris as of right now. Looking at the red states, you have Utah being about a 24-point win, 23.9 to be exact, which would be a slight improvement from the last election. So despite the popular vote being around R plus 10 to 11, Utah doesn't really budge in Vance's direction all that much. Idaho and Wyoming, on the other hand, do move several points in the direction. You see Wyoming moves 6 points to the right. Idaho moves a couple points to the right. It moves about like 7 or 8 points, give or take. Montana, in this case, moves kind of hard to the right. It actually moves more than most of the other states, almost a 10-point shift in the state of Montana. North Dakota ends up voting a 42-point win there, so that is a slight increase from the 36-point win here. South Dakota is an increased 37-point win in the state of South Dakota as of right now. Nebraska is really interesting because this one obviously would be in the safe column, for JD Vance. He ends up winning the state by 28 points and wins Nebraska's first by 21 percentage points. So that is a huge performance, and that's going to be very indicative of the second congressional district in Nebraska. Kansas, Oklahoma, Alaska, these are all safe margins now, including Alaska at 20 points, a 7-point shift in that state. And Kansas, almost a 10-point shift in the state of Kansas as of right now. So very fascinating stuff in some of these, red states. We can fill most of these in now as well. You guys get the point. The red states themselves are even moving pretty hard in the Republican direction. Kentucky, 37 points. Tennessee, 36 points. Alabama, almost a 40-point win in the state of Alabama. South Carolina, 26 points. Florida, a 20-point win in the state of Florida. Just a huge win in the state. Vance does win Hispanics very slightly in this hypothetical, and so that's where that comes through. You see Ohio, a 20-point win in Iowa in this hypothetical being a 18-point victory, and the state of Texas also being an 18-point win. So a slight movement from the last election cycle, which puts Vance at 218. And then when you add in Maine's 2nd congressional district, a 20-point win in Maine's 2nd congressional district in an 11 plus in an Vance plus 11 national environment, 20-point win in Maine's 2nd. So again, very interesting to see that there. Kamala Harris and her safe states are not looking in very good shape at all, with Maryland only being a 16-point win, DC automatically being a blue state there. But Maryland only roughly, give or take, a 16-point win. That is much closer than what it was in 2024 when it was a 29-point win for Kamala Harris. So her margin basically gets cut in half, and the black popular, the black vote share definitely goes up for Vance by quite a bit. But Vance gaining with white college educated voters is definitely going to help him a lot in this electoral scenario, with Vermont coming in just give or take at just 23 points and Massachusetts at just 17 for Harris. So just a disaster in the blue states. That is it for all of the states that are over 15-point wins for Kamala Harris. In every single state's going to be less than 15 points if she even wins them. The likely states for JD, you got the state of Georgia at about 12 points for Vance. I mean, this was just roughly give or take a 2-point win last time around. And this would be just a landslide win in the state of Georgia for Vance. North Carolina ends up coming in at about 12 points. So they're roughly about the same in this hypothetical. They basically kind of vote almost together. Arizona in this one is about a 13-point win. So that's interesting. Kind of votes a little bit closer with, Georgia as well. I think it's because the black vote share definitely helps Vance catch up in that Sun Belt area there. Nevada, an 11-point win in the state. So Arizona still voting to the right of Nevada in this hypothetical. And we look at Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These are all likely margins. I mean, 8-point win in Wisconsin, 10 in Michigan, and then 11 in Pennsylvania. So again, you do see that the minority vote does vote, it kind of helps Michigan and Pennsylvania be a little bit more Republican than Wisconsin is. And Wisconsin typically has a little bit more of a liberal lean, in ideology as opposed to its voting record. And with Kamala being a very left type of candidate, I wouldn't be surprised to see her kind of do well in a state like Wisconsin still in this hypothetical. So that is it for the likely states for Kamala Harris in this hypothetical for JD Vance. Looking at the likely states for Kamala, we see California at just 14 points. This would be a big shift towards JD. That would be roughly give or take a 6-point shift in his favor in the state of California. Oregon is just roughly 7 points, so a 7-point shift in the state of Oregon into Vance's column, and Washington would be a 9-point win for Kamala Harris. So that white college educated vote moving to the left is definitely helping out Vance in this matchup, and it's just spelling disaster for Kamala Harris. Hawaii, only a 10-point race in the state of Hawaii. So the state of Hawaii is almost voting to the right of Washington in this hypothetical, which is very, very interesting. We also see Delaware, just a 5-point win in the state for Kamala Harris in Delaware. Maine's first congressional district is just roughly, give or take, a 13-point win. That is almost half of the margin of what it was back in 2024. So you're seeing clearly that Vance would be winning a theoretical landslide election here against JD Vance would be winning a hypothetical landslide against Kamala Harris here. And you have many other states that are up for grabs. Connecticut is just over 5 points, just a 5-point win for this candidate for Kamala Harris here. Illinois coming in at just about 5.5 points as well. So Illinois, Delaware, and Connecticut basically voting together in this hypothetical matchup here. But if you're looking at some of these other states, it is not looking good for the Kamala Harris camp at all. The rest of the states are states that are going to be decided by under 5 percentage points. The lean states for JD Vance include the state of New Mexico, where he does win it by 3 points. As of right now, the Hispanic vote does continue to move to the right, and when you shift college whites in Vance's direction, it definitely does make a huge difference in the national popular vote, and it does shift the state of New Mexico into his column. Minnesota ends up flipping to Vance by almost 4 points in this matchup, and Virginia 3.5 points for Vance. So they're kind of basically voting together, as well as New Mexico. They're practically voting, in the same range. Nebraska's second congressional district even falls in Republican hands here in R+11. It barely votes for Vance by just 2 points in an R+11 scenario here. And when you're looking at, for example, Maine, even Maine and New Hampshire both vote together at 2.4 percentage points for Vance in this political environment. And when you look at the final states here, Colorado is actually somewhat competitive. A 3-point win for Harris. That's it, just 3 points. Now, again, when you include voter registration trends and whatnot, I do expect Colorado to still be over 5 points, even in a scenario like this. But again, states don't vote in isolated islands. If New Mexico's going to go for Donald Trump or any Republican candidate, or go for J.D. Vance, for, crying out loud, if it were to go to any Republican candidate, Colorado would have to be under 10 points, because there's overlapping demographics in those states. And so you would expect Colorado to be close if New Mexico is as well. And with college whites shifting the most to the right in this matchup, that's why Colorado ends up being significantly closer. New York, just a 4-point race in the state of New York for Kamala Harris. That is it, only 4 points in that state. It would be a very, very tight race in the state of New York, and it would just be a very bad performance for Democrats. And Rhode Island would end up being just under 5 points here. It would come in roughly, give or take, a 4.9 percentage point win for Kamala there. And the last state here, New Jersey, would barely end up flipping into the Republican column. Just a 0.2 percentage point win for Vance, despite it being a plus 11 popular vote win. But again, as voter registration updates over time, I do expect New Jersey to be an easier win for Republicans given this national environment. I'd expect Vance to win New Jersey by like 3 or 4 and or plus 11. But given the circumstances here, you do see that Vance is, albeit barely, winning here. Again, voter registration trends can definitely change the way that this map looks over time. But as of right now, according to that Atlas poll, which again predicted Donald Trump's win in the popular vote fairly accurately, and in a lot of the swing states, they have Vance up on Kamala in favorability by 11 points nationally. And a map like this would definitely be possible in that scenario. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.